Headlights. Sweeping across my front lawn, slow and deliberate, like someone was looking for an address. Or looking for me. I froze. The envelope clutched to my chest. The car slowed. Stopped. Right in front of my house. Someone was out there. In the middle of the night. In the middle of the storm. And if they'd seen me through these windows, if they'd seen what I was doing, if they somehow knew what I'd just signed away, everything would fall apart. If they find out before I'm gone, every plan, every precaution, every carefully worded clause will mean nothing. They'll tear it all down before the ink even dries. Would you have done what Margaret did? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for stories of quiet justice. I was 24 years old when I met Harold Hartwell, and I didn't have $1 to my name.
People forget that part.
Or maybe they never knew it at all. When you're standing at someone's funeral listening to people talk about his empire, his vision, his genius for business, nobody mentions the girl who typed his first proposals on a borrowed typewriter. Nobody remembers the woman who answered phones in a cramped office that smelled like cigarettes and desperation while he made cold calls in the next room. That was me. Margaret Porter, secretary. 5'2", brown eyes that Harold said reminded him of honey, and dreams bigger than I had any right to own. My mother had warned me about men like Harold. Ambitious. Hungry. The kind who'd promise you the moon and leave you holding an empty sky. But Harold was different. At least I thought he was. We got married in June of 1977. City Hall. My dress cost $32. His suit was borrowed from his cousin. We had 17 people at the reception, and the cake came from the grocery store bakery. Harold whispered promises in my ear that night. We're going to build something, Maggie. You and me. Together. And we did. God help me, we really did. I found the proof 20 years later, tucked in a filing cabinet Harold thought I never opened. Ledgers. Old ones. The kind written in pencil and ink before computers made everything clean and soulless. Page after page of my handwriting. Expenses I'd tracked. Clients I'd called. Contracts I'd drafted while Harold was out schmoozing potential investors. My chest went tight when I realized what I was looking at. Years of my work. My ideas. My nights spent hunched over paperwork while Harold slept. And not once, not in any presentation or interview or award acceptance, had he mentioned my name. The company that made us millions? I'd built the foundation. Brick by invisible brick. I closed that filing cabinet and never told Harold what I'd found. What would be the point? He'd convinced himself the story was true. The self-made man. The visionary. And maybe, in his mind, I really had been just the supportive wife in the background. Just Margaret.
Just Mom.
But the man I built up, the man I stood beside for 48 years, he never imagined what our children would become. He never saw what I saw. Or maybe he did, and he just didn't want to admit it. Have you ever felt taken for granted by family? Hit that like button if her story already speaks to you. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and old money. Mr. Fendrick sat behind his massive oak desk, wire-rimmed glasses perched on his narrow nose, reading Harold's will in that flat, emotionless voice lawyer's perfect in law school. My 3 children sat in the chairs beside me. Clara to my left, 46 years old and already calculating. Benjamin across from me, 43 and fidgeting with his phone. Patricia at the end, 39 and pretending to dab at tears she wasn't really crying. Harold had been in the ground for 6 days. I could still smell the funeral flowers every time I closed my eyes. Lilies. I've always hated lilies. The estate is to be divided equally among the beneficiaries, Mr. Fendrick droned, subject to the terms and conditions outlined herein. Clara leaned forward. Benjamin stopped scrolling. Even Patricia looked up. $3 million, give or take. The house. The investments. The rental properties Harold had bought over the years. All of it split 4 ways. Me and the kids. I watched Clara's face as the numbers sank in. Her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close enough. She glanced at Benjamin, and something passed between them. Some silent conversation I wasn't supposed to understand. But I understood perfectly. They weren't thinking about their father. They weren't thinking about me, sitting right there in my black dress with his wedding ring still warm in my pocket because I couldn't bear to leave it at home. They were thinking about the money, about what they could do with $750,000 each. Clara's smirk was the thing that did it. Just a tiny curl at the corner of her mouth, there and gone in a heartbeat. But I saw it. I saw everything. She was already making plans, already figuring out how to get more, how to convince me, her grieving mother, to sign things over, how to take control before I even knew what was happening. Mr. Fendrick kept reading. Something about property taxes and investment portfolios. I stopped listening. My hands were folded in my lap, perfectly still, perfectly calm. The dutiful widow, the gentle mother. None of them knew that I'd already met with a different lawyer. None of them knew about the papers hidden in my bedroom drawer. I should have mourned my husband, but all I felt was the chill of betrayal. The house got so quiet after they left. That's what nobody tells you about grief. It's not just the person you lost. It's every sound they used to make. Harold's footsteps on the stairs, his cough from the living room, the rustle of his newspaper at breakfast. All of it gone, replaced by silence, so heavy it pressed against my eardrums. I tried to fill it. Tried to be the mother I'd always been. I called Clara on Tuesdays, Benjamin on Thursdays, Patricia every Sunday after church. Sometimes they answered. Most times I got voicemail. I'd leave messages that tried not to sound desperate. Just checking in, honey. Seeing how you're doing. Call me back when you get a chance. The chances never came. I baked Clara's favorite pie. Drove it to her house myself. 40 minutes in traffic, my hands aching from gripping the wheel. She answered the door in yoga pants and a tank top. Phone pressed to her ear. Oh, Mom, you shouldn't have. I'm on a call. Just leave it on the counter, okay? The door closed before I could answer. Benjamin forgot my birthday. Patricia canceled lunch 3 times in a row. Always an excuse. Always something more important than the woman who'd raised them. The house echoed with my footsteps. Room after room, empty. I'd kept everything exactly the way Harold liked it. His chair in the living room. His books on the shelf. His reading glasses on the nightstand. Like he might come back any second and need them. But nobody was coming back. Nobody was coming at all. I fell in the bathroom on a Wednesday. Slipped on the tile getting out of the shower. Went down hard on my hip. The pain shot through me like lightning, and I just lay there on the cold floor, naked and shaking, wondering if this was it. If this was how they'd find me. I managed to crawl to the phone. Called Clara first. No answer. Benjamin. Voicemail. Patricia picked up on the 5th ring. Mom, I'm at yoga. Can this wait? I told her I'd fallen. She said she'd call me back. She didn't. I pulled myself up using the sink. Sat on the toilet lid for 20 minutes until the shaking stopped. The bruise on my hip turned purple, then black, then yellow. Nobody asked about it because nobody came to see it. 3 months. That's how long it took me to realize the truth. My children were waiting. Waiting for me to get older, weaker, easier to manage. Waiting for the day they could make decisions for me instead of with me. I was 72 years old, and I'd become an inconvenience they just hadn't priced yet. That night I heard them. Clara and Benjamin on a phone call, not realizing I was on the extension in Harold's office. She was talking about selling the house. Our house. The one Harold and I had bought 37 years ago. The one where I'd raised them, bandaged their knees, packed their lunches, taught them how to be human. It's too big for her anyway, Clara said. We could get at least $900,000 for it. Split the profit. Benjamin agreed. She doesn't need all that space. We could move her into one of those senior communities. You know, the nice ones. They talked about me like I was a piece of furniture they were tired of storing. That night, I realized I was just an inconvenience they hadn't priced yet. The cemetery was empty when I went to visit Harold's grave. November wind cut through my coat, and the sky hung low and gray like it was pressing down on the world. I brought flowers. White roses because Harold had given me white roses on our first anniversary. I set them by his headstone and stood there, hands shoved in my pockets, trying to feel something other than numb. I didn't hear her approach. Didn't notice her until she was standing 3 graves over, head bowed, gloved hands folded. She was older than me, maybe 75, maybe 80. Elegant. That's the word that came to mind. Gray hair swept up in a bun, wool coat that probably cost more than my car, and an expression that suggested she'd seen everything life had to offer and wasn't impressed by most of it. She looked up and caught me staring. I started to apologize, but she smiled instead. "Cold day for visiting," she said. Her voice was warm despite the words. I nodded. Managed something about paying respects. She moved closer, reading Harold's headstone with a kind of careful attention that made me think she actually cared. "Recent loss," she observed.
I'm sorry.
We talked. I don't know why. Maybe because she was a stranger and strangers are safe. Maybe because I was so desperately lonely I would have talked to a scarecrow if it showed interest. She told me her name was Lydia Greaves. She'd buried her husband 9 years ago. She knew about the silence, she said. The empty rooms. The way your own children turn into strangers. Then she said something that made my heart stop. "Do your children visit?" I must have made a face. Some expression I couldn't control. Because Lydia nodded like I'd confirmed something. "They're circling, aren't they? Waiting to see what they can get." I opened my mouth to defend them. To say what mothers are supposed to say. But nothing came out. Because she was right. God help me, she was right. Lydia touched my arm. Her glove was soft against my coat. "There are ways to write justice in ink," she said. "Ways to make sure your wishes are honored. Not what they want. What you want. What's right." She handed me a business card. Cream-colored, expensive paper. Lydia Greaves, estate planning consultant. A phone number in embossed gold lettering.
Call me if you want to talk, she said.
Sometimes the best gift we can give our children is a lesson in consequences. She walked away before I could respond. Just disappeared between the graves like she'd been a ghost all along. Maybe she was. Maybe Harold had sent her. Maybe the universe was finally giving me permission to stop being a victim. I went home that evening with a new kind of fire. The kind that burns quietly. Lydia's office was nothing like Mr. Fendrick's stuffy downtown suite. She worked from her home, a restored Victorian on the east side with stained glass windows that threw colored light across hardwood floors. We met in her study, surrounded by leather-bound books and the smell of coffee that actually tasted like something other than bitterness. "This isn't about revenge," Lydia said, sliding a folder across her desk. "It's about accountability." I'd been meeting with her for 3 weeks. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, sneaking out of my house like a teenager breaking curfew, making sure my car wasn't seen, making sure nobody asked questions. We'd been building something. A structure. A framework that would outlive me and outlast my children's greed. The trust was brilliant in its simplicity. The money wouldn't go to Clara, Benjamin, or Patricia automatically. They'd have to earn it. Prove themselves worthy through actions, not words. Show compassion. Demonstrate genuine care. Visit their mother while she was still breathing instead of circling like vultures waiting for her to drop. Lydia called it a morality clause. I called it a mirror. Let them see what they'd become. But there was more. A foundation. A charity in Harold's name that would receive the entire estate if my children failed to meet the terms. Every dollar. Every property. Everything they'd been counting on would vanish into the hands of people who actually needed it. Mr. Fendrick came to the 4th meeting. He was Lydia's lawyer, not Harold's old attorney who'd read the will with all the emotion of a parking meter. This Mr. Fendrick was younger, sharper, with eyes that missed nothing and a reputation for building legal walls that couldn't be knocked down. He laid out the risks. "Your children will contest this," he said flatly. "They'll claim undue influence. Diminished capacity. They'll say someone manipulated you." "Good," I said. "Let them try." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "We'll make it airtight. Every conversation documented. Every meeting recorded. Medical evaluations proving your sound mind. They'll have nothing to stand on." We worked through December. Through Christmas, which I spent alone because all three of my children had other plans. Through New Year's, which I celebrated with a cup of tea and the satisfaction of watching my signature appear on page after page of legal documents. The final meeting was on January 15th. Everything was ready. The trust was established. The morality clause was ironclad. The foundation was registered with the state. All that remained was my final signature, the one that would make it all real, the one that would seal my children's fate and give me back something I'd lost years ago.
Control.
But Mr. Fendrick had one last warning. He leaned forward, hands folded on his desk, and looked at me with something like concern. If they find out before you pass, Mrs. Hartwell, they'll contest everything. They'll tie this up in courts for years. The foundation might never see a dime. Then I'll vanish before they can. Could you keep a secret like this from your own children?
Tell me below.
I tried one last time to reach them. Maybe that makes me weak. Maybe it makes me human. I don't know anymore. But I had to be sure. Had to know beyond any doubt that I was doing the right thing. That they really were as lost as I thought they were. I called Clara on a Monday. Told her I'd made pot roast her favorite. Asked if she wanted to come by for dinner. She said she was busy.
Didn't offer another day.
Didn't ask if I was lonely.
Just busy, Mom.
You understand. I understood perfectly. I invited Benjamin for coffee.
Just an hour, I said.
Your old mom misses you. He showed up 20 minutes late, spent 15 minutes scrolling through his phone, then said he had a meeting and left. The coffee I'd made him sat untouched on the table, going cold while I watched his taillights disappear down the street. Patricia was the worst. I asked her to help me sort through some of Harold's things. His clothes. His papers. The personal items I couldn't face alone. She agreed, actually showed up, and spent the entire afternoon photographing Harold's watch collection. For the estate valuation, she said, we need to know what everything's worth. Not what it meant. Not the memories. Just the price tag. I fell again. This time in the kitchen, reaching for a mixing bowl on the top shelf. Went down hard, caught my arm on the counter edge. The pain was immediate and sharp, and I knew something was wrong. Knew it in the way you know things when your body stops cooperating. I called Benjamin. He didn't answer. Left a message. Called Clara. Voicemail. Patricia picked up, and I could hear a restaurant in the background, laughter and clinking glasses. Mom, I'm at dinner. Can't this wait? My arm might be broken, I said. Ice it, she said. Call me tomorrow. She hung up. I drove myself to urgent care. Sat in the waiting room for 3 hours with my arm cradled against my chest, watching families take care of each other. A husband holding his wife's hand. A daughter translating for her elderly father. A son carrying his mother's purse while she filled out paperwork. My arm wasn't broken, just badly bruised. The doctor gave me a prescription for pain medication and asked if I had someone to help me at home. I lied and said yes. The next day, Benjamin called. Not to ask about my arm. To ask about property taxes on the rental units. He needed the information for his accountant, he said. For planning purposes. Planning purposes. Like, I was already dead. That's when I knew. That's when the last tiny flicker of doubt went out like a candle in a storm. My children didn't love me. Maybe they'd forgotten how. Maybe I'd failed to teach them. Maybe Harold and I had given them too much and asked for too little. It didn't matter anymore. The why didn't change the what. I pulled out the trust documents that night. Read through them one more time. Every clause. Every condition. Every consequence. Then I called Lydia. That's when I buried them. Not in soil, but in paper. 1 a.m. again. The rain had come back.
It was February now.
2 months since that first night when I'd signed the preliminary papers. 2 months of living with this secret, this weight, this knowledge that I'd rewritten the future and nobody knew but me and Lydia and Mr. Fendrick. Tonight was different. Tonight was final. The documents spread before me were the real thing. Not drafts. Not proposals. The actual, legal, binding trust that would control everything after I was gone. My signature would activate it. Make it real. Turn my children's expectations into dust. I picked up the pen. The same pen I'd used to sign my marriage license 48 years ago. The same pen Harold had used to sign the deed to this house. Fendrick had provided. Placed them in the safe deposit box key he'd given me. Tomorrow, I'd take them to the bank. Lock them away where no one could find them, couldn't destroy them, couldn't undo what I'd done. My hands were steady now.
No trembling.
No doubt. Just clarity. Cold and sharp and absolutely certain. They'll never know, I whispered to the empty house. Until I'm gone. If you're still with me, tap subscribe. Don't miss the twist coming next. I died on a Thursday in March. Well, that's when they found me. I'd actually been gone since Tuesday afternoon, sitting in my favorite chair by the window with a book in my lap and Harold's wedding ring in my pocket. Peaceful. Quiet. The way I'd wanted to go. Clara found me when she stopped by to drop off some tax forms she needed me to sign. She called the ambulance, called her siblings, stood in my living room crying tears that might have even been real.
Hard to say.
The funeral was well attended. Funny how many people show up after you're gone. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in months. Harold's old business partners. People from church. All of them telling my children what a wonderful woman I'd been. What a devoted mother. What a loss. If only they knew. The will reading happened 2 weeks later. Same office. Same Mr. Fendrick from before. But different documents. Very different documents. My children sat in those same leather chairs, wearing their funeral blacks, tissues ready, expecting to hear about their inheritance. About dividing up the $3 million. About who got the house and the rental properties and Harold's precious watch collection Patricia had been photographing. Mr. Fendrick opened a different folder this time. He explained the trust. Slowly.
Carefully.
Using words that couldn't be misunderstood. The estate was not being divided equally. The estate was not being divided at all. Not yet. Not unless certain conditions were met. Conditions they'd already failed. The morality clause was read aloud. The requirements. The time frames. The documentation of every canceled lunch, every ignored phone call, every time they'd treated me like an inconvenience instead of their mother. Lydia had been thorough. She'd helped me keep records.
Dates. Times.
Witnesses. Clara's face went white, then red, then something beyond color, something that looked like pure rage.
This is garbage, she said.
This isn't legal. Someone manipulated her. Mr. Fendrick slid a folder across the desk. Medical evaluations. 3 separate doctors confirming my sound mind. Video recordings of me explaining my decisions. Letters I'd written in my own hand, dated and witnessed, explaining exactly why I was doing this. Benjamin stood up, started pacing, ran his hands through his hair the way he did when he was 7 years old, and realized he wasn't getting his way. You can't do this, he said to no one. To everyone. To the ghost of me haunting that office. This is my inheritance. Dad would never have wanted this. But Dad didn't write this trust, Mr. Fendrick said calmly. Your mother did. Patricia just sat there.
Stunned. Silent.
Maybe understanding, for the first time, that actions have consequences. That you can't ignore someone for years and then expect to inherit their love and their money. The foundation received everything. $3 million to help families in need. To support caregivers. To provide resources for elderly people whose children had forgotten them. Harold's name would live on, but not in the way my children expected. Benjamin stormed out. Actually knocked over his chair on the way. Threatened lawsuits. Threatened to contest everything. Mr. Fendrick, let him go. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Clara stayed. She stared at Mr. Fendrick like she could change reality through sheer force of will. There has to be something, she said. Some way to fix this. There is, Mr. Fendrick said. Your mother outlined it in her final letter. He held up a sealed envelope. Cream-colored. My handwriting on the front. To my children. But there was one letter left sealed on my nightstand. Their final lesson. Clara took the letter. Her hands shook as she opened it. Patricia moved closer. Even Benjamin came back from the hallway, drawn by curiosity or desperation, or the faint hope that somehow this letter would undo everything. Clara read it aloud. Her voice cracked halfway through, but she kept going. My dearest Clara, Benjamin, and Patricia, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Finally at peace after months of pain you never bothered to ask about. I want you to understand something. This isn't revenge. Revenge would be taking away something you earned. You never earned this money. Your father and I built it together, but you three did nothing but wait for us to die so you could spend it. I gave you everything, every opportunity, every advantage. I taught you to read, to dream, to reach for more. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to teach you the most important thing. Love isn't something you inherit. It's something you practice. Every day. In small ways and large ways. In showing up and paying attention and giving a damn about someone other than yourself. You failed that test. All three of you. And now you get to live with the consequences. The money is gone. Given to people who will use it to build families instead of breaking them. To support the forgotten instead of forgetting them. Your father's legacy will help thousands of people. People who understand that wealth means nothing without compassion. But here's what I really want you to know. You can still fix this. Not the inheritance. That's done. But yourselves. Your own families. Your own children. Don't make my mistakes. Don't give them so much that they forget the value of showing up. Of calling. Of caring about someone when there's nothing in it for you. Clara's voice broke completely. She couldn't continue. Patricia took the letter, her hands steadier than her sister's. She read the final lines. When love is traded for money, both are lost. But when money is given away for love, love remains. I hope you find that truth before it's too late for your own children.
Before they look at you the way you looked at me.
Like an inconvenience they haven't priced yet. I love you. I always have. I just wish you'd remember to love me back. Your mother, Margaret. The office was silent. Mr. Fendrick didn't move.
Didn't speak.
Just let the words settle like snow, covering everything, changing the landscape. Patricia folded the letter carefully, put it back in the envelope. She was crying now, really crying. Not the performative tears from the funeral, but something deeper. Something that looked like understanding. Clara stared at the wall. Benjamin had his head in his hands. Maybe they'd learn. Maybe they'd take this lesson and become better people. Better parents. Maybe they'd call their own children more. Show up more. Remember that love is a verb, not a noun. That you can't coast on blood relation and expect people to stick around. Or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd spend the rest of their lives bitter and angry, blaming me for their own failures. I'd never know. That was the price of death. You don't get to see how the story ends. But I'd done what I could. I'd written my final lesson in ink instead of speaking it into the void. I'd made sure they couldn't ignore it, couldn't delete the voicemail, couldn't say they'd call me back later. The foundation received every penny, every property, everything Harold and I had built. And somewhere, families were helped. Caregivers were supported. Elderly people were reminded that someone cared. That was my inheritance. Not money, not things. But the knowledge that love, real love, had to mean something. Had to cost something. Had to be more than words and promises and empty gestures. When love is traded for money, both are lost. But when money is given for love's sake, love wins. If Margaret's story moved you, share it so more people remember that love, not wealth, is the true inheritance. Subscribe for more tales of quiet justice. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your words might inspire someone who needs to hear this message. Someone who's struggling with their own family. Someone who needs permission to stand up for themselves. Be that voice. Be that hope. And remember, the best inheritance you can leave is not what you own, but who you helped become better. Thank you for being part of this family.